That's why it's so important for the kids and the caregivers to show up to court. They don't always. So we're getting information from secondhand, third-hand information. We make such better decisions when the kids and the caregivers come to court, and we get that information.
Welcome to the Riverside Project podcast. We are mobilizing Houston to empower families and transform generations. We hope these conversations will give you a greater understanding of the issues facing our community and inspire you to find your place along the river. Welcome back to the Riverside Project podcast. Today we have Judge Charles Griffin, who serves as the Associate Judge of the Gulf Coast Children's Court under the Office of Court Administration. A board-certified attorney in child welfare law, he has been licensed since 1997 and has spent over 6 years presiding over cases that directly impact children and families in the foster care system. A proud Texas Tech Red Raider, Judge Griffin brings both extensive legal experience and a compassionate lens to one of the most complex areas of the child welfare system. Judge Griffin, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, let's just start off and tell us a little bit about your journey into law and how you came to be a judge in this space.
You know, I guess it's just a twist of fate. I started out wanting to be a journalist. I went to, in high school, I was on the yearbook and the newspaper and loved writing. And I went to undergraduate at Texas Tech to get a journalism degree. And I went to a journalism law class. And I liked it. I actually did pretty well in the class. And it always kind of stuck with me. When I finished undergraduate school, I wasn't ready to grow up yet. So I sat and took the LSAT and luckily got high enough to get into Texas Tech School of Law. And off I went. And I thought that I was going to be doing constitutional law, or arguing in front of the Supreme Court, defending journalists across the country. And here I am. Yeah. It didn't quite go the way I thought it was going to go.
Yeah. How did you get into the child welfare side of things? So you started practicing law, I assume, and then what kind of moved you into this space of child welfare?
So what they don't tell you when you go to law schools, everybody goes to, most lawyers are doctors who couldn't do math. So there's a lot of lawyers, and we compete for the jobs. And I was lucky enough to get a job at a legal aid where I had a wide breadth of exposure to a lot of legal issues. And I met a gentleman who became my mentor and taught me how to practice law. And one day he and I took a class action suit against the Social Security Administration. And he offered me the opportunity to start my own private practice. And while in private practice, we typically take appointments, and I happened to take an appointment on a probate case. And while I was in the probate case hearing, the judge took a shine to me and said, "Hey, what about taking a CPS case and representing some parents on a CPS case?" So I did, and I never looked back.
Yeah.
One day standing in court, I was arguing with a lawyer that represented CPS.
Yeah.
And I remember we were going toe-to-toe on a case, and she looked at me and she said, "Charles, if you think you can do better, then why don't you apply for a job as a district or a county attorney?" So I did. Yeah. And then the rest is history. I've represented the department and parents and children all across the state, and it's I was fortunate enough to find the kind of field that I wanted to be in, and I'm able to practice in.
Yeah. Was there anything specific about being on a case like that you felt like was different, that you were kind of drawn to, or was it the complexity, or what was it about those types of cases that you're like, I think that this might be my place in this?
I was able to make a difference, and actually help somebody. The first case that I got out of the chute was representing a young father by the name of, I'll give his first name, was Sean, and I helped him find housing as his lawyer. I helped him get a job at McDonald's. The case did not end well for him, unfortunately, but I felt like I was doing good work. It was different from representing parties in divorces, for example,
Sure.
or drafting wills. I mean, that's noble work. Somebody has to do it, and you're accomplishing a goal, but it's not really helping. I guess I have more kind of a servant's heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see kind of the journalist aspect too of you're kind of uncovering all of these different things and aspects of a case that you're trying to piece together, and then getting to actually do something about it in the space could be really rewarding, I would expect.
Absolutely. I hadn't made that connection, but you're right.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Happy to help out there.
Learned something about myself today.
Yeah. For many listeners, the courtroom can feel like really a very intimidating place. I know as a foster and then adoptive parent, going to court is super intimidating. Can you kind of describe what the role of the judge is in a child welfare case? I mean, for our listeners who are foster parents, they've seen it and been a part of it, but how can you kind of describe what the role of is for a judge and particularly in the courtroom?
Well, it's just like any other case. So a judge in a child welfare case, just like in a family law case or any other type of case, our job is to hear the evidence and make decisions when there's a controversy or a dispute. So we call, as judges sometimes say, we call the balls and strikes. We try not to insert ourselves too much into a case. I sometimes am not so good at that. But our role is really just to be kind of a middle person, an arbiter, and decide disputes. We always have the best interest of the children at heart, which is a different kind of aspect of child welfare law. So we're always thinking about the kids and how we can not hopefully put a child in a better situation than they're currently in.
Yeah.
But no one really should be, intimidated coming into one of our courtrooms. We certainly don't want them to be. I mean, respectful is one thing. Intimidation is another. So when you come into any situation in a courtroom, we certainly want you to show the court respect. We're going to show you respect. We want you to show each other respect, right? But intimidation is really not what we're trying to do. We try to make our courtrooms pretty welcoming. For example, mine right now, it's football season. And when you step into the vestibule of the courtroom, the first two doors, you're going to be greeted by a big blow up of Raider Red. There's that. And as you approach the bench, I always keep food at the bench. There's a little bowl of chocolates. I always tell people that when they walk out of the courtroom, they can say that they got something more than a hard time. At least they got a piece of chocolate out of it. And in our courtroom, it's a little bit more informal. We do what we call, I guess, a circle of justice. The lawyers don't sit at the table. The kids don't sit at the table. They stand in front of the bench and they talk. And when kids show up, I try to do, it's kind of a trauma-informed practice. I explain to them why they're there, how it's going to go, and I give the kids the choice of kind of directing how things are going to happen. I always ask them, do you want to talk first or do you want to talk last? And 99% say they want to hear what everybody else has to say, and then they talk. But we try to do it in kind of a respectful but still informal, less intimidating manner.
Yeah. Can you share a little about the type of cases that you hear? And then I would assume too, as you were on the lawyer side for a while, and now you said it's hard for you not to insert yourself. I assume that's difficult, but how has kind of being a lawyer on one side helped you as a judge or made it more challenging? But can you kind of explain too what kinds of cases do you hear? Tell me more about the Gulf Coast Children's Court, and then just kind of like your role in that space.
So Harris County kind of gives us a very unique opportunity. There's actually there's three courts in the state that are like the Gulf Coast Children's Court. Mine, our sister court across the hallway, called the Impact Court. I think it's got a new name now. Judge Griffin always gets on to me. Details are my thing, but certain details are not my thing. But the two of us, because there are so many cases in Harris County, have the ability to hear what we call just permanent managing conservatorship cases. So we're focused usually solely on the kids. The parents' rights or parents are sometimes involved, a lot of times still involved in the case, but the kids are in the department's permanent managing conservatorship. And our goal is to try to find permanency for the children to get them out of the system. It's what's different from our court is that we're not focused on the temporary managing conservatorship side. That's when a child usually first comes into care. The focus of the case tends to be primarily on the parents and whether or not the parents are, we're trying to engage the parents in services and make it possible for them to go home. Usually when we've gotten the case at that point, there's been a trial and a judge has decided that the children can't go home now and maybe not for the near future. If the parents' rights are still intact, we'll take a little slower approach and take more time. If they're not, then we're looking to find what the child's next step looks like in our court. Only Dallas has one court like ours. And Houston has two courts like that. Our court has about each. Judge Griffin's court and my court were actually physically across the hallway from each other. So it's great. It wasn't always that way. I used to be in a totally different building, but a few years ago they moved us across the hall, and now we can kind of collaborate, which is great. We share a lot of ideas, and we're working together to set up a closet, as you know. So which is good. It's good for our kids, but we're just a different animal. We focus on things. When I came to this court, most of my experience was on the temporary managing conservator side. I represented the department for many, many years in termination cases or TMC cases. I occasionally before I worked for the department, represented parents and children. And what I didn't know is frightening to me now. I always kind of made the assumption that my focus needed to be on the kids, on the parents, and didn't really focus on the kids because they were with the department. And because they were with the department, they were safe, they were being fed, everything was being taken care of. And the department does a great job, but it's just a lot. And what we now do on the PMC side, I've become more knowledgeable. I've used that child welfare experience that we talked about. I now use my knowledge of Social Security law. I use my knowledge of education law to advocate or push for these kids to make sure that they're getting the services that they need. So we're pretty unique.
Yeah.
We also hear in our court what we call court-ordered services cases. So we're working with families with kids that are still in the home, which is great.
Yeah.
And we do a few other things like orders of aids investigation. When new cases come in, it may require an order from the court to help the department complete their investigation.
Yeah, I could imagine just all of those different factors. I mean, we know in any of these cases, there are parents involved to different degrees, right? You have the best interest of the child, you have the department's wishes, you have all the needs that the kids have. And there's such a challenge on knowing, how do we get them from here to here, right? What does stability look like? And there's so many factors, and you're only one role in that. Are there any specific kind of guiding principles on how you make those decisions? Like, what are the things that you're kind of thinking through, or things you mentioned that you've learned over the years that really kind of guide you in how you're going to handle a particular case?
It's the law. I always lean on the law, the statutory law, and the case law. What I have found in moments when a case is particularly complex and there's a lot of tough issues that I'm grappling with, the law is pretty clear. So I always take a beat. When I have a tough case like that, I may take a recess and take a couple of days to think about things because I want to get it right. I think every judge wants to get it right.
Yeah.
But when you start applying the facts that we've gotten, the evidence that we get, and you apply it to the law is pretty clear. If this XYZ happens, then do this. If ABC happens, then do that. So I do that. But I also always try to listen when I'm in the courtroom, I guess, with a compassionate ear. I get to weigh the credibility of the evidence and give weight to the certain evidence when I'm making the decision. So I try I listen with a compassionate ear.
Yeah. I would assume, I think about it a little bit like in medicine. My background's in medicine, and I remember when I worked in a hospital as a nurse, you have the chart, you're putting all that information in there, and when you're sending a kid off to surgery, all of that information goes with them, and the surgeon or the other, physicians that are just now seeing this kid are relying on all of that evidence that you have within the chart, right? That it's accurate and that it's all there. I would assume it's kind of similar maybe for a judge, right? You are reliant upon the attorneys and the facts and all the things that all these other people are bringing you. And so I could see that being a really big challenge, just like there's a lot of trust that you are putting into all the other people that are involved in a case for you to make the best decision.
It is unique. You'd ask kind of like, what was the difference, I guess, between being a lawyer and being the judge? And that is kind of the difference, is that I have to rely what's brought to me.
Right.
As a lawyer, I was collecting the facts. I was collecting the evidence and presenting it to the judge. And now I'm on the opposite side. I only get what's given to me. And I think that sometimes that gets a little frustrating for folks. Why do judges make the decisions they make? Well, we do it based on the evidence and the testimony that's been presented to us.
Yeah, and I think that kind of speaks to everyone doing their role as best as they can. When attorneys are taking their roles seriously and doing the best possible job that they can do for kids, and then the judges are doing the same thing, the caseworkers doing the same thing, then in an ideal world, like everything gets brought forward and the best decision is made. But we talk a lot about at Riverside Project, like bringing better than nothing to excellent, like that all of us can move away from kind of, well, this is better than nothing. Not to say that people are using that type of bar, but we want everything in the system to be excellent. And how do we help one another get to that point? It's complex for sure.
I've got a little sign on my bench that says, if you do the little things well, you'll do the big things great. Something like that. Yeah,
and what it speaks to the kids that are coming through, that they're trusting you to care for them and to care for their case and their well-being. Is there anything that you feel like the general public kind of misunderstands about a judge? We spoke to just now about, you only have what comes before you to make decisions. Is there anything else that you feel like maybe the general public kind of misunderstands about the role of a judge in a case like this?
Well, I think that's one of the big ones is that sometimes people question, why did the judge make this decision? How did the judge not see this? And we can only make decisions based on the information that we have. I guess I want to make a pitch here. That's why it's so important for the kids and the caregivers to show up to court. They don't always. So we're getting information from secondhand, thirdhand information. We make such better decisions when the kids and the caregivers come to court and we get that information. I think one of the other frustrations for the parties that are in the case is that they have this belief that the judges can fix anything. And we can't. We can fix certain things. We can make rulings and decisions. But there's, some things that we can't fix. One of the common things I hear a kiddo say when they come into court, they've had a problem with somebody on their team. It might be a therapist, or it might be a caseworker, or it might be a CASA volunteer. And they say, Judge, can you make this person stop coming out? And I have to explain that that's not in my power, right? CASA gets to decide which volunteers are assigned to the case. CPS gets to decide which caseworkers are going to be assigned to the case. And they, as the person's making direct decisions for you, have decided that this therapist might be the best person for you. I know that you don't like it, that you're not really happy with it, but there's just some things I can't change. And it's on all sides. The parents don't always understand why I can't intervene in, or why and the kids don't always understand why I can't intervene in. And it's hard sometimes. There's times where I want to get involved and I want to make a change, but it's just not in my it's not in my discretion.
Yeah. And that kind of speaks to, like, from your vantage point and where those gaps kind of are, what do you think that kids that you see in your court need most, whether it's from their parents, from their caseworkers, from the community at large? What are the needs that pop up for you that you feel like are still kind of not always being met, that we could do a better job at?
Well, if you ask my kids, they will tell you they need cell phones and they need a computer. I don't always agree with my kids, for sure. I think what they need is a good team, consistency. When I have seen kids, when they get the right caseworker, when they get the right CASA volunteer or the right lawyer and they make that connection, that kid takes off. And when you think about, Judge Griffith actually pointed this out to me one day, but what our kids go through. I mean, it's a traumatic experience to be removed from your parents, right, and put into CPS's care. That's bad enough. But when you think about what foster kids go through, we do a graduation ceremony that Judge Griffith started it. I get to participate in it now, which is great. But we do it once a year. One of the things that we do is we point out how many times those kids change schools, high school. Some of them change high school 5 and 6 times. They may change caseworkers, 3, 4, 5 times. CASA volunteers, people change placements, and yet they still graduate.
Yep.
So when you think about what these kids could do if they had not been handicapped by being put into foster care and the foster care system, these kids are really something special.
Yep.
And all they need is a little grace and a little bit of support and someone to kind of stick with them because they've gone through so much. And kind of recognize what Judge Griffith recognized is that these are rock stars. These kids in any other situation would have been or still could be your honor roll students, could be your doctors, your lawyers, the next president of the United States. Because what they have achieved, given the cards that they were dealt, is amazing.
Yeah, and what a gift it is to have a judge on their case who can see that, who can recognize it and then even communicate that sense of worth to them, because that trickles down not just in your words, but in the way that, I was at the graduation ceremony this past May. I guess, I don't know if it was actually in May, but it was this past year. And man, it was really special. I was proud of the kids who were there. I was also really proud of you and Judge Griffith and the way that you were speaking truth to them, speaking worth to them, and not even just speaking it to them, but reminding them that what they're worth and what they're capable of. I thought it was just really, really special, and it made me really excited to use whatever assets we have to help them get there, right? Yeah, and I think what you were saying in having a team, having a caseworker for them to connect with whoever it is on their team, it's like that relationship that gives them, I can do this. Someone actually believes in me. And it's not like rocket science, but it is a skill and an asset that I think, whether it's a caseworker or an attorney or a judge, can utilize to really move the ball forward for these kids. Really, really cool. Is there a moment or a story where you have seen a trajectory for a kid like that, that maybe has come through where you've seen them shift because someone believed in them or saw them, that you saw a kid's trajectory completely change?
I'm glad to say it happens all the time. So when I'm in court, I'll see, there's a young man that I'm thinking of. When I first met him, he was physically skinny, small, always wore a hoodie. And I connected with him at Eagles Court. That's a great program that's put on by Dina Fisher and a lot of partners. And I connected with him at Eagles Court, and he kind of sat off into a corner by himself, and I always just kind of had his head in his hoodie. And he started coming to court after we met, and he stood in court, and the first couple of times he had that hoodie on. But by the third or fourth time, the hoodie came off, the hair got cut, and he got physically bigger. He stood up a little straighter, started lifting weights, got a little bigger. And I was really proud of him. You could really see him come out of his shell. Mm-hmm. And I see that with a lot of my kids. Did they get off the path every once in a while and make some mistakes? Yes. What teenager doesn't, right? Yeah. There's certainly bumps in the road. But I have seen, the fact that one of the things I'm really proud of is when we start, when I was a lawyer on the opposites, representing the department or representing parents and children on the TMC side, mm-hmm. and other counties that didn't have a court like Judge Griffith's court or the GCCC. Once the kids turned 18, those cases were done. Mm-hmm. Now, what I'm really proud of is that our kids we're talking about not only graduating high school, we're talking about going to college. We're talking about going to a trade school. They're getting into supervised independent living programs. They're staying in care longer. I've got some kids now, been on the bench 6 years now, and I've had a handful that I've kept until 21. They keep coming to court every 6 months, even though they may be living with a significant other or with an aunt or an uncle. They keep coming back to court. Mm-hmm. And it's such a good thing, the work that we're doing.
What keeps them coming back?
I don't know. Probably the candy at the bench.
Maybe it's just the candy, Judge Griffin. Just the candy.
But it could be the candy. I was thinking, another youth, a young woman, I did something out of the box that caused everybody to kind of, clutch and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's doing that. But she was having trouble with high school. And I told her, come sit in my courtroom Monday, Wednesday, Friday, connect on the internet and do your homework. She got close. She didn't graduate. But to her credit, she got on her road for the first, she was 18, over the age of 18. She went from her seal and rode her bicycle to the courthouse to do her homework. And then she started taking a bus. Mm-hmm. It was a special kid. She's still with me. She's still working. She's still trying. There's been some bumps in the roads, but I think she'll make it. We'll just keep keep trying and keep plugging. But yeah. So back to your point, there's been successes? Absolutely. I've still got some works in progress, but I've got kids who have gone on to college. They have reunified with their parents successfully, and they're living independently, which is really what we want.
Gosh, with that story of her coming up on a bike, on a bus, it speaks to resilience, but it also speaks to just the trial of that, of not understanding underneath what it takes for many of these kids. I don't know that I have always wrapped my mind around that, or maybe the general public doesn't recognize what that takes for a kid to graduate, right? She's riding a bike across town or to downtown courthouse, right? Or finding the bus route as a 18-year-old, just to get to a computer to be able to do school. The stakes are, and the barriers are really high for a lot of these kids. So to see them when they succeed and when they step in and when people can rally around them, it really is something special.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah. What do you feel like the community at large can do to support the kids that come through your court every day?
So we can always use resources. There's a lot of ways to get involved. I thought about, this question. It depends on what, there may be listeners out there who are thinking, I'm not ready to adopt. I'm not ready to foster. That's a lot.
It's a big step.
Of course, there are kids out there that can use a forever home. So if there are listeners that want to go and look at the TARE website, become foster parents, I absolutely encourage that. But there are a lot of other ways to get connected. I mean, we have great programs. There's the Hay Center that helps with our 18-year-old up children with housing and employment services, things like that. The Hay Center was always looking for help. There's Pearls Eagles that we talked about earlier that works with our kids that are 14 years old. It's a mentorship program. They give kids, bring them in every other Thursday and feed them a meal. And then we do what we call our programming night. It's usually to teach them the skill, but it could be something cool like, hey, let's take the judge out to, I did this, it's been a little while, to what do they call it? A jump and jive, where you get on the swings and the bouncy house type things. And so they had I was, I think, 52, 53 at the time, swinging from a rope from the ceiling. It was a lot of fun.
I bet they love that.
Yeah, we did some fun things. That was fun. There's CASA. Becoming a CASA volunteer is a great opportunity, or just getting involved in one of their activities. I go out every Christmas and we wrap gifts for a while, which was a lot of fun. So, and there, of course, there's organizations like the Riverside Project, getting involved, donating, things like that. There's lots of things that community members could do that could help our foster youth, but they always could use resources. They can always use connections. Safe Kids is another one. It's another mentorship program. The idea is to mentor a child and maybe work towards becoming a permanent home for the kids. So there are many opportunities for people to get involved with these kids.
Sometimes it's just taking a step. It's what we like to do a lot at Riverside is someone can reach out and we just spend some time understanding what do you have to give and let us help you plug that in somewhere, which I think a lot of people are out there just wondering, what do I have to give? And just that question, walking with somebody to figure out what that is and getting creative about all the different opportunities that might exist in the city to serve. So,
for sure. A lot of these organizations just show up. I know that Judge Fisher that does the Eagles Pearls program, she's got such a big heart, such a warm person, and anybody that walks through the front door who's got kind of a giving heart and wants to she'll, obviously with proper screening, but she'll welcome them and get them connected right away.
Yeah, we love the Pearls and the Eagles program. We've actually had Dina on the podcast a couple of years ago, and we definitely need to do a follow-up on that because it's grown significantly. But it is truly a wonderful program to connect with youth.
Doing amazing work.
Yeah. Well, as we kind of wrap up, 5 to 10 years from now, what do you hope to see in this space and for the kids that come through your court every day?
I want to see fewer kids come through my court every day. I think that's probably one of the big dreams. We're certainly trying to provide services and help to families in the home now, which I think is a great thing that we're doing. More resources for that. to prevent kids from being removed and put into foster care in the first place. Mm-hmm. And that I would hope that additional resources for the youth that are in care. We still need mentors. We still need just basic resources for the kids, clothes, food, education services, someone to go to school and advocate for them. More of what we have now, I guess, is what I would want in the next 5 to 10 years.
I always try to kind of rack my brain on how do we get there, right? How do we kind of think through why are kids in the space where they're at and what things could we have prevented, right? The number of moves, you mentioned kids moving schools, kids moving placements that have kind of gotten them to a place where they're really struggling. And so how do we as a community think further upstream of like, how do we prevent this for the next kid who comes down the road? How do we keep them in a stable placement? How do we support their placement so that they can thrive there with all their needs met? So it's a lot of work to do. I also believe that it's possible. I think we can do it.
I do too.
Anything else that you feel like is important to note about your experience?
I love my job. You're fine. I love this job. It was unexpected, obviously. When I started out in school, this is not where I intended to be, but I firmly believe I'm at where I'm supposed to be at. And being able to work with these kids and the attorneys that I work with and the CASA volunteers that I work with and the caseworkers I work with, mm-hmm. It's a great honor. I guess the one thing that I can say is that I was really kind of surprised about how much the job changed me. I don't think that I would be the person that I am today if I didn't have the experiences and the opportunity to do the things that I've gotten to do. I wish we didn't have this type of work at all.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I get to do it.
How do you think it's changed you?
I'm a much older, wiser person now. As a young man, I could see myself kind of being very intolerant of people and what I consider to be foolishness. And the experience has told me is that life's messy and it's not a straight road. This job has taught me to be, although I'm not always at my best, to be a little bit more compassionate. It gives me the opportunity to help and do something different. It's something that I hope when I look back and I'm done working, I can say I did something with my life.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, as we close it out, we always do kind of the last 5, which are a little bit more rapid fire, a little less maybe intense, but a little bit more about who Judge Charles Griffin is. Uh-huh. The first one we've kind of talked about a little bit. What's one belief about our city that's grounded your work over the years?
So I'm a transplant, obviously from Houston. I grew up in Fort Worth, Dallas, and then I moved to Lubbock, where I consider it home. But I'm quickly approaching having lived in Houston longer than any other place I have in Texas. I've been here 6 years this time. I was here one year during Harvey. After experiencing Harvey, I moved for higher ground.
Yeah.
But what they say about Houston being strong, it is. And the resources that Houston has, it is a privilege to be able to work in the city. I often tell friends there's Houston and then there's everywhere else. So the people that are here make Houston special. The resources are here and make Houston special. And just the opportunity to work in the GCCC, this type of court is a particular honor.
Yeah, it's good. What do you hope children remember about their time in court? Besides the chocolates?
Besides chocolates, which I suspect would be the one thing they do remember the most, that they were heard and that they were treated fair. They may not have always gotten what they wanted, but they know that the person who made the decisions did it from a good place.
Yep. What's your favorite part about being a Texas Tech alumni? Is there a sport or a program that you still follow?
It's hard to pinpoint what one favorite thing is about being a Texas Tech alumni. It's the best decision I ever made. I kind of made it on a lark. Actually, it was so I'm originally from Tennessee, and I wanted to go to Vanderbilt because I wanted to go to journalism school. I have a great journalism program. And my parents were cheap and said I couldn't go out of state. So I picked the school as far away as I could get from my parents because I was mad.
Yeah.
I went to Lubbock. Best decision I ever made. I grew so much while I was there. Don't regret a second of it. I always tell my kids now in court, if there's one piece of my life that I could do over again, would be go back to school, go to college, and redo that again because that was so much fun.
Yeah.
But as far as sports go, I'm really proud of the football team right now. All of our athletic teams are doing a really good job, but the football team is doing a great job. I expect a championship this year.
That's so good. If there was a youth that was listening to this who is in foster care, what do you want them to know?
Come to court. Yeah, I want them to know to come to court, that I can't make good decisions without them being there and them telling me their thoughts and what they need and what they want. Come to court.
Yep. Come to court. Last one. What's one unexpected thing that you've come to appreciate about your work?
Well, as I said earlier, how much it's changed me, the impact that it's actually had on me. I do not think that I would be the man that sits here right now if I didn't go through the job and the experiences that I've had. So I'm very grateful that to that judge who appointed me to the very first CPS case. His name was Bob Carroll. I still remember him. And for the folks along the way who took me under their wing and gave me the opportunity to work in this field.
Yeah. Well, truly from the Riverside Project, but also from, I'm sure, the many families and kids who have come through your court, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for hearing kids. Thank you for spending the time, for bringing the chocolate, for making that time comfortable for them, and just for fighting alongside us for kids and families, right? I mean, I think it's a communal effort, but the work you do every day is really appreciated. So thanks for spending your time with us too.
It's truly my honor. Thank you.
To those listening, we hope these conversations have inspired you to find your place along the river. And we welcome you to join us in bringing hope and renewal to the city of Houston. If you'd like more information on how to get involved, please visit riversideproject.org and submit a contact form. We'll see you next time.